Howdy, everyone. Welcome into the TexAgs Rewind. Nick Savage here with Zach Reese, who just made his Social Center debut. We're presented by Specs. We're outside of the Rollo Insurance Studio. Zach, what was your favorite part of the show today?
I would probably say the segment with Brauninger and Richard. I really enjoyed their insight on the baseball season, how it's gone so far.
Okay, yeah. You don't have to give them compliments. It's all right.
Yeah,
we also had
They
Ross,
deserve it. They deserve it.
I guess. Also had Ross Dellenger on the show, Luke Evangelist with Olin Buchanan to kick off the Go Hour, and Billy Liucci in studio as well. Check out the Rewind.
Yeah, I mean, that's key for his confidence. Players like him and Manny, and really any player that's handling the ball a lot, having that confidence is key, and building on those performances is key. I feel like this is a redemption game for Wade because he played against LSU. It was the first time he came back from injury, but he really didn't play that well. It was just kind of I don't know if you remember this game and felt the same way, but A&M won, but it didn't feel like they were dominant really at anything. Wade, I think he finished with 11 or 13 points, but it didn't feel like a Wade game. It felt like he was still getting back from that injury. This is a chance for him. Look, he has a lot to play for. Obviously, he knows he needs 9 points. Everybody knows that. But he's not just going for 9 points. He's there to do whatever it takes to help his team win.
Well, I don't think Wade is ever going to have a confidence issue. Mm-hmm. I don't think he needs to go out and have a good game for confidence. So I'm not on that.
But there's a swagger to it.
I think he always has swagger.
Okay.
However, I will say that applies, and I'd like to see it continue with Manny Obaseki. Mm-hmm. Because I think if you could, hopefully, I'm not asking Manny to get 20. He had 10 the other night. Looked good doing it.
In 14 minutes, too.
He looked good doing it, right? Remember last year, we've talked about this before, when they started playing really well, Manny had about a 10-game stretch where he was hitting double figures, and it made a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And so I would love to see Manny build on what he did against Auburn and just continue that upward trend. And I think that would be the biggest factor for A&M moving forward.
If you get that Manny, the one that we saw at the end of last year, and at this point, it's a huge if because we haven't seen it consistently at all this year. If you get that Manny, this team can be that team we talk about going to the Elite Eight, getting to the Sweet 16. Well, guy can be that factor.
I think those last 10 games of last year and what Manny is one of the reasons, a big reason, that A&M was ranked so high to begin the year. They say they got Wade Taylor, they've got a bunch of guys come back. Look what Manny Obaseki did last year,
And then there's the actuality. Like when I got to TexAgs, I had this vision of what my role was going to look like. And then you're there, and then you have to form it based on the circumstances.
Yeah, as much like a baseball game, you can have a plan going in of what you expect it to look like, and it very rarely goes exactly the same way. And to your point, when I started at TexAgs, I had a vision of what I thought my job responsibilities were going to look like day to day. And when I got here, especially back then, it was vastly different. Mm-hmm. And so you don't know how you are going to respond to all of that until you're actually in it. Coach Early had never been a head coach and managed a game with anything on the line until February 14th. The first time. So all of this stuff that he's going through, he's forming his identity as a head coach because there's no way you can prepare yourself for everything unless everything goes to exactly the plan you had before the season. And we already know that it didn't start that way, right? Mm-hmm. With no Grahovic being injured and then now no Grahovic, no Sorrell, no Josh Stewart. That's massive hits to not only your ball club, but how you manage the ball club and your expectations going day to day. And people can say, well, he's the head coach. He's paid to figure that out. You're right. You're absolutely right. But his first time in this role, he doesn't know how he's going to form his identity as a head coach just yet until he goes through it. If you look at the previous head coaches here, what we know and view them as came with a lot of time in the saddle, right? Mm-hmm. And so, this was part of the risk of hiring a first-time head coach, but I believe in Mike Early, and I especially believe in the relationship that he's got with his players and how much they love playing for him. And so, you give this guy time as well. And the expectations that we talked about to start the segment should have been altered whenever Grahovic and Sorrell and Stewart went out. They're not, and Coach Early has said, when you come to Texas A&M, the expectation is Omaha. And there's no excuse around that. That's the expectation. And so he is having to form his personal identity as a head coach in the fire. Right now, when they're when he's injured and his team's not playing at their best.
It's a lot of hurry up and wait.
It is. There's just a lot of talking going on. A lot of these issues, I think, probably more complicated than how they kind of feel on their face. There's just a lot of legal entanglements, rule changes going on. I mean, all the rev share, the direct rev share to athletes, that whole system's going to change in virtually everything about college athletics, and it touches everything. And so there's a lot of legal issues, I think, that are being talked about, and those things just take time. And I think we'll have probably in the next 3 to 6 months, probably by the time football season rolls around, we'll have a lot more answers on the details of the settlement, whether it's going to be approved or not, how schools are going to handle it, what the SEC Big Ten are going to do from the CFP format, and how that's going to look going forward. So we're going to get some answers here hopefully soon.
So you think, the SEC going to 9 games, we'll know that maybe by the time football season rolls around, their future there?
Yeah. I think probably by the spring meetings in May, the SEC spring meetings, that we will probably learn a lot there. The vote might be there, might be just after, or perhaps just before even. So I think probably by July 1, by media days, we'll know if the SEC is moving to a 9th game starting in 2026. And as I wrote about 3 weeks ago, it does seem to be all trending that direction. All these things are kind of related. And again, they're all tethered together, and they're all kind of linked to the revenue share deal with athletes. Everybody needs money to share, right, with athletes. And so the way they're doing that is generating other revenues. And I think one of the ways you generate revenue is, for instance, an extra SEC game. You get more money probably from ESPN. You get more money from season ticket sales, all that stuff. And then that allows you to potentially play a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten, because they're at 9 games right now. So in order to get that done, both have to be at nine conference games, I think.
First of all, I think they'll get that. I think that's an appropriate, non-offensive number. I think A&M, look, if you're picking Texas A&M football right now, you're picking 8-4. That's a safe record to land on every year. There's a misconception out there that I pick A&M to go like 11-1 every year. I'm typically in that 9-3 range until proven. And there's been a couple of years where I picked 10-2. That's when the rest of the country picked them in the top 5.
Yeah.
How many times have I said I don't think they should be ranked 6? I think they should be ranked like between 10 and 12.
Yeah.
It's happened multiple times. And it's because it's show me before I fully jump in. But I thought last year's schedule was going to be really conducive to what I kept saying was I thought they were going to be 9-2 entering the Texas game. Then thought home field, they could get Texas at home. As the season went on, they lose a Le'Veon Moss. They go from Connor to an inexperienced Marcel and went through the growing pains of that, had to go through Connor's struggles. It was just slightly off. But again, I think I went. The problem is they baited me on Twitter to get to 10-2, I think, right before the season. But here we talk 9-3 is where I usually land. But right now, if you're picking A&M, and if over the last however many years, if you're trying to predict A&M's record, the safest play to go is 8-4. That is not what Mike Elko wants or expects. That's not what those players want or expect. And I certainly don't think that's this team's ceiling. But to set the over-under at 7-5, I think, or at 7.5 is a good over-under.
All right, Zach, tell them what to do.
Yeah, like, comment,
Well, you got to
share.
be in the camera.
Like
my
bad,
you're
my
drifting
bad.
that way. You got to come this way.
Yeah. I'm usually in the studio. So.
The camera's actually right here.
Oh, yeah. No, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.